Kyle, who's calling in from Indiana. Kyle, you've been waiting for a little bit now. How is it going, Kyle?
It's going really well, Dan. I'm sorry that Richard is having technical problems. I had some earlier. What I'm calling about, you guys are great. Love the show, how it deals with the supernatural and things that basically can't be explained. But there is this theory in science, the multiverse. I think you're familiar with it. And if there are infinite universes, and I assure you, I understand we're going down a rabbit hole here. How do we know that we're not in a universe that has gods or aliens or ghosts? Because there's something going on here. And being unexplained is different than realizing there's a problem. I think you would agree that there are many things out there that are still unexplained.
Sure. There's definitely things out there that are unexplained. But when we talk about what's unexplained, what scientists usually mean when they're talking about that is explained through natural law. In other words, they don't have mathematical or otherwise any kind of scientific description of understanding why things are operating in the natural world in the way that we observe them. The key here being, of course, natural, right? So if we're talking about the expansion of the universe, why is the universe expanding at a greater rate? Why is it continue to accelerate? That's something that we may not fully understand quite yet, but it's something that we observe the natural universe happening with. We don't necessarily call it a supernatural phenomenon in that sense, because at this point in time, we don't have a reason to. But it also begs the question, and this is something that's talked about in the atheist community a lot, what would it even mean to talk about the supernatural? Are we talking about something that's violating the law, or is it just something that we've yet to express in natural law, right? So there's a big distinction there. And the more that we seem to find things in the universe, the more we seem to be able to describe through natural means. And that doesn't mean that we may be able to explain everything through natural means, but I don't even know what a god or what a supernatural being would even look like at this point, to be honest. It almost seems nonsensical, because it seems like we're either able to explain it via natural means or we're not. And even if we're not, that doesn't mean that it can't be. It just may mean that we're simply not able. So it's a really hard thing. And that's why most atheists take the position that, yes, we don't know for sure that a God doesn't exist, right? That's a key thing. A lot of people miss that. But we do tend to say that we don't necessarily believe in one because we don't have good evidence to believe so at this time. That doesn't mean it can't change in the future. Now, there are definitely hard atheists that will say, yes, there's definitely no God that exists. And of course, I would disagree with that and saying I don't know if I can even go that far. But specific variations of gods, like Yahweh, for example, the Christian God, I'm pretty sure about that one, if only for the fact that there's specific claims that are attached to that God that we can actually look at and see if they match up with reality, right? So anyway, I know that's kind of a long answer, and it looks like we got Richard back with us. Richard, hopefully you were able to hear the question. Did you have a response?
I missed the beginning of the question, so I wouldn't mind if Kyle just repeated the beginning of the question.
I think he asked me what I said in the beginning, but I'm getting feedback with him or a delay.
Gotcha. Yeah. So I'll go ahead and explain. So basically, he's asking if multiverse is a real thing, then how do we know that there aren't universes, or that we aren't in a universe that could have ghosts or the supernatural, right? So that's kind of what we're looking at. Richard, you still there?
Yeah.
Okay. So we're still getting a little bit of technical difficulties here, but were you able to hear the question?
Yeah, just repeat. I just missed it again. Sorry.
Right. We'll do one. Let's see. So we are looking at, if the multiverse is real, then how do we know that ghosts and other kinds of supernatural aren't a part of that multiverse?
Right. Yeah. We don't. We don't. But the time to believe it is when they have.
I'm really interested in what Richard has to say. I just want to say I've asked that question to a few people. Dan, you pretty much nailed it. I am very curious to what Richard has to say, but I sort of set him up.
Yeah.
Yes, the universe, we don't know. And just like lightning used to be thought as a vengeance of the god or whatever, as we learn more about the universe, these things that we see as supernatural may just be part of the way it is. We just haven't explained it yet. The problem with the multiverse, though, is as far as infinite universes, if I understand it correctly, that means that any possibility that's there is going to happen somewhere. The question then becomes, as an observer in that universe, how do you know if you're in that universe or not?
Why do you think that any possibility can happen anywhere? For example,
maybe you missed the beginning, Richard. I'm going off a rabbit hole that we say that there is a multiverse. And if that theory is correct, then this is where that rabbit hole leads me. Where does it lead you? And I'm very interested.
Why does it lead you there? Why would you, for example, think that in an infinite universe, which it may be subject to the laws of physics that we're learning to understand, and we will, hopefully understand more in the future, why would you think that pertains that anything is possible? If souls aren't part of the human condition, why would that be in a different universe, in a multiverse, souls suddenly become possible? In the multiverse, it may still be that the same laws apply. We're not. It's not just a get out card to say that anything can happen. There must be a reason why things can potentially happen. Just saying, well, there are infinite possibilities isn't a reason. It's just begging the question.
Interesting. You have a response, caller?
Right. Richard, thanks. If there was a multiverse and there was infinite universes, I tend not to use the word impossible without some very, very, very hard facts. Things have been called impossible for millennia. It was impossible to fly. It was impossible to go over 30 miles an hour. So possibilities, I think, are only limited by the human's imagination. If we can find a way to do it, we're going to. So to say that, and that's where I go with infinite possibilities. It's just something I was thinking about, something I talked to my friends about, and I thought I would call you guys and pose the same hypothetical situation. Dan nailed it to start with. I became speechless after his response. So,
well, one additional thing I might add to that, Kyle, and I appreciate you saying that, but I would say, when we're talking, my understanding of multiverse, right, and I am not a physicist in any sense of the word, but my understanding is that there is the possibility of different types of fundamentals in our cosmology that could exist. So like the behavior of gravity could be different in a different kind of multiverse, right? The behavior of electrons could be different in some kind of way. So those kinds of fundamentals could change, right? So if we're working with that understanding of the multiverse, then we're still talking about natural phenomenon, right? There wouldn't be necessarily anything supernatural about that if we even understand what supernatural means, right? It still would be, it seems that we would still be able to describe things in a mathematical way or an otherwise scientific way. So I wouldn't know I still would know what it means, even in a multiverse, to say what a supernatural being is at that point. But yeah, that's really all my thoughts about it. I hope that was sufficient enough for you, Kyle.
Yeah, hey Dan, thanks for taking my call. Richard, sorry we didn't get to talk more. I've followed you guys for a little bit now. Big fan. Appreciate your comments, and I'll let you take another caller. Thank you.
Thanks, Kyle. I appreciate it. And yeah, it's usually I will say this, when multiverse, specifically quantum stuff comes up, those are my least favorite conversations. That was actually pretty nice. That didn't go super off the rails, which I thought was pretty interesting. I know you missed a little bit of that, Richard, but yeah, did you have any follow-up thoughts?
Yeah, it's a very interesting area of study, and it's again, I'm not a physicist. I've got friends who understand the science far better than I have. And, even my understanding of what a multiverse is has changed over the years. I had a friend who was really into cosmology who said that one idea about the multiverse is that not that kind of universes are stacked up on each other, which is kind of the traditional idea I had, but that with our own universe is that big that the multiverse is the parts of our own universe that we have no access to. There are parts of our universe we will never be able to see because they're just that distant from us. And that's one concept of the multiverse. So just even thinking about the multiverse is a very interesting thing to do in itself.
Yeah. The terms, if you don't define them super concretely, and even now we're using it very, very loosely, it becomes a very nebulous conversation. And this kind of conversation also reveals a lot about one's epistemology in the sense of how they understand the universe to work. And what I mean by that is, do they understand the logic to be an a priori thing that the universe relies on? In other words, do they think the universe is somehow inherently logical, inherently bound to mathematics? Or is it possible that it's beyond a kind of description and function like that? So far, we've seemed to be able to describe the universe in mathematical terms, and philosophically speaking, we may not ever be able to completely say why that is, which is really, really crazy. And it's a thing apologists point out too. They're like, they're like, well, you can describe things in math because God made logic and all kinds of stuff. And it gets really into some weird territory there. But I'm glad that there's people who are smarter than I am, who are reading up on the literature of this every day so that they can actually figure out the answers to this stuff. And they don't have to like listen to, dopes like me on call-in shows, try to make guesses at what we're talking about, right?